You are at the factory Novinya Yuri Bibik. Mr. Sergey Islin is with me. Nyan famous, journalist and host of Khodorkovsky Live. Sergey, I'm very glad to see you. Hello, I'm glad to see you. Thank you very much that you are with us and the real truce is in. Will take place in the near future. These are terrible minutes at this moment of all mankind because we know that Trump is the greatest in history. Humanity approached the telephone receiver and finally accomplished this historic feat. He said into the phone, hello before. We've been warming up with this for a whole week. Have you heard that you know ours is not? Worse than French, French is worse. Sneaked up to the telephone booth and constantly hello and left her well like children. Usually played around with Scholz too from 2 years. Sneaked up to the phone booth finally. I called Putin, but the other thing is that no one. Scholz didn't answer after that he changed diaper and explained to the nation for a long time. You know what if with a glazed gate? Trump Planet Earth went to the phone. On the tube, it means the greatest. Historical event. What is the event, eh? It doesn't matter. Everything Trump does is history. He is great. He is powerful. Who does not believe? Look in a mirror, and if Trump said that he will call, that is exactly what it is. The main geopolitical event with what? Results, yes, there you think they're well. Ukraine, their Odessa, Mariupol, that's all. No matter in legitimizing the fascist Putin. We get a situation where Roosevelt is in. During the war, he calls Hitler and says, Alazevich, listen, come on, you're the good one. Well, man, let's go for peace. And Hitler says, hey, Hitler, I don't mind. You know what you've already agreed on here? Belarus with Ukraine, with Russia, with Moldova, with Latvia, with Lithuania, with Estonia. We agreed that they would go to any lengths. Your conditions, what are your conditions? Says, so then I'll give the land to. Stalingrad means, but not okay, I'll go to Kursk. I lost the battle, and Kursk lost it too. Oh well. And everything that is now on the line. The distinctions are mine and there. Reparations, contributions, and Stalin. Tell him not to do anything after this. I didn't have troops. I didn't fly nuclear weapons into space. I didn't try to cook a bomb in my kitchen. In the pans for boiling eggs, I agree, yes. Okay, I'll write it down. I'll pass it on to our friend. Stalin, this is what we have played to, and considering that Trump has shown that firstly, rich people are not necessarily smart people. Rich people are most likely finished scoundrels, and they're absolutely ready to go. For the sake of its own greatness, brilliance, and self-affirmation beyond all. Moral standards, at the same time boundaries, and rules not only legal, but even geographical, and today we have with you. Trump still has nothing. No arguments. Trump, for some reason, listens to the fascist. For some reason, he doesn't listen. Zelensky, who was attacked, for some reason, asks the killer in. You hear when you turn the corner with a knife. Cut, listen, you were for peace, and here you are. When you remember releasing the guts, you did it. You wanted it to be different somehow. It's just that everything got out of control, no? The one you stabbed, we are with him. Okay, we'll finally give it to him. Now a good marble slab on top. Well, you're actually a normal guy. Let's discuss what you want. How many more virgins do you need? How much do you need to cut? How much are you? By the way, do you want it around the house? Will you set fire to it or not? Well, if you don't, well, listen, you're definitely a peacemaker, and because Trump has nothing at all, nothing except the feeling that everything is allowed. He decides what the law is. What is truth? What is truth? What is moral? What? Profitable, what is profitable, and to these, he is absolutely suitable for negotiations. Arguments, absolutely without position, knowing that small change coins of Ukraine to him. It has absolutely no value. It can be to hand over, but it is presented as the most important thing. Event because Trump finally opened his mouth. Fantasy. I corrected my hair, and the applause came. Look at the gesture he makes with his right hand. Notice the politician's polished, right-wing gesture. He just did it with that right hand. I drew on the wallpaper with a felt tip pen. Oh, sorry. He signed the documents and reached out to the telephone receiver quickly here. Guinness World Records special brand of beer. New cigarettes like Soyuz Napoleon and so on. Actually, it's a red letter day. What are you talking about? Our Trump called on the phone and more. Nothing. No facts. No actions. No events. And we must take this very seriously. Perceive says, yes, you know. What a deep analytical reason. This is very serious, you know, well, Trump. You know Trump himself. Personally, no, you haven't seen. Trump, he's not just one phone call. Did you see the pipe? Well, what is this? It's not. What is there somewhere their shoals wear from? I called, but he doesn't even have an office. Oval and round somehow. And what about Macron? He has a square phone booth, but is this a call? Is this included? Look at history. Here we are, America, and so now we are, and that's already two. Trump, who has amnesia, who has. He says with his brains completely heavy. How? If it weren't for me, there would be no war. Because it was me. War was all. Your first stroll, you something there. Some guys, you say someone to you. I feel sorry for either the Russian mercenaries, or you feel sorry for the Ukrainian guys, but for years. I didn't feel sorry about a while ago. But what about now? Happened got old, relaxed, let go. Tears of emotion, or just sclerosis. Your memory has been lost, and you don't remember what happened. You had a war in Afghanistan, war in Ukraine, and you didn't stop either one. Another, and now, for some reason you think. What would you stop if she was like that? You forgot it turns out there was a whole war. 2 wars, 3 whole wars, so you forgot. It turns out there are 4 wars that. There were no 5 wars that were in your previous judiciary activity in. You forgot in the Oval Office, and now you are giving us the greatest geostrategic achievement called Putin Hitler. Roosevelt and Churchill did not. Called you know yesterday, evening edition. Semaphore, I first heard about it, by the way. I suppose like many of my Ukrainians colleagues, and since it came out with exclusive, some insider information with very hot news that Trump plans to recognize Crimea as Russian, and, moreover, it will even appeal to the UN so that the organization can do this too. I did it, and I wanted to find there. Out of curiosity, I decided to check what it was. Because of the edition, it is quite authoritative. Its publication is headed by journalists who worked in the media corporation, BL Berg and Buffett, and other serious media. And so they come out with this news, and well, they cite sources like this. It has always been accepted lately. Refer to some anonymous sources, and so this morning the news comes out about that they can give it to the Russians. Control of the port in Odessa, for example, and some others like this. News, which looks like some kind of warming up, or to understand the mood. Either this is just disinformation or this is. I'm trying this for myself, though. Find out so as not to be limited there. I want to ask you directly about separating Crimea. Can Trump confess? Occupied Ukrainian territories. Russia by Russians. Well, first of all, the behavior of the Spade waistcoats. Ilf and Petrov described it best. Were actually very accurate in their diagnoses. They were moving very actively, and they knew what. Chamberlain is the head, therefore, in principle, peak vests, even if suddenly they hit the mark, not only with a printed word, somewhere under a hardcover with illustrations of kooknicks in the form of 12 chairs and a golden calf well. And for example, modern information. The tapes don't stop being because of this. With Spade vests, yeah, and Trump like us. They showed how he already saw, and because the scoundrel is absolutely finished. He probably already has brains. He can also be close to completion. Allow yourself absolutely everything after that. How could he not understand what they were doing? Journalists that he hates, yeah. I didn't understand what the Voice of America and radio are. Freedom, he didn't understand that even the format. Radio, which is there at a minimum because that these are internet resources, but nevertheless, even the radio format is extremely important and acts as a cumulative projectile armor because there are such regions in which there is no electricity on the trees. The internet is growing, there is not enough radio. It still exists in conversation with oppressed nations. Deprived of freedom of speech on there. National language allowed radio. Freedom, few have ever had so much. Editorials and the Voice of America, which spoke exotic languages with people who really needed this word here. Trump appears who simply doesn't understand what it is, but how can you? Talk to the person who writes Shisha via S about the spelling dictionary well. He can be given spelling books. He simply won't understand what this is about. Book Trump also doesn't understand how much. We earned the Voice of America well. I understand that the CIA is there, at least with drugs. Trades in moderation. You can leave the Voice. America, what is a trade in? It's useless. There's no profit. Well, at least it needs to be closed. Based on this, and Trump can afford everything. Whatever you like, especially since he doesn't know geography. He knows what Odessa is. He doesn't know. Confuses with Adidas and can't. Understand why the city's symbol does not. Free strip, so basically if you, I need these sneakers, take them. Let's build you a factory like this. Will be called Odessa Bagel Shop. Artel Moscow Bagels from start. Quite why not if only. Some Vance who is like that. Draw a cross, a smile, or horns on his face. Halloween will be cut out and say, at Trumpushka. Wait, listen here. I opened the atlas here. You know, this is a rolling city, and there. Some Daribas, I didn't quite understand why. Different from Karabakh Barabbas, but better. Don't touch weight. Let's figure it out then. Maybe, but Trump is free to do everything. Anything, just hand over the whole of Ukraine. After that, Taiwan to China after that. South Korea and North Korea, how does he like it? He says it quite clearly. Don't take away the chem power. Horror. And you know I didn't plan this. Discuss, but I'm incredibly interested in yours. Opinion on what you already. Radio Liberty and Voice partially said. America, I swear, I don't understand why. To close these machines, even from the point of view, Trump, that is, it is clear that there is media, which they love, they lily, and so on, and so forth. There's the media, who had their accreditation restricted there. Associated Press, for example, which, for some reason, they suddenly refuse to write about it there. That it is not a Mexican channel, American, and so on. That is, all of this. I understand, but there are two media machines there. 350 million each. Weekly views, that is, audience. Weekly tool of influence in everything. The world since the 50s or there, excuse me. What years do not work this is understandable. The thing is that this influence is the power of America including take and close. I'm not me, here I am. I swear to you, I don't understand why I don't. I understand why he does this. Well, first of all, he had no right, he has no authority. This is the jurisdiction of Congress. And funding is not from the budget there at all. Only 30% of budget money, the remaining 70%. This money did not come from state treasury, secondly freedom. Words it is provided with guarantees. States and money. Taxpayers do not exist. Government money is money. Population who chip in. Number to make America sound beat. For goodness, all over the world Trump hates. Press Trump is a dictator. Why? Stalin himself is unacceptable, and no matter what. That was alternative journalism. Exactly the same way, according to the same pattern. Under Hitler, absolutely nothing is possible. Press except that permitted by Adolf. Hitler is unacceptable under Trump. Anything other than permission. Trump's and his goodwill in, as a result of which it either exists or not, and Trump is the most important asset. America Trump, the most important media America. As Trump said, so it is and not. Some Voice of America, not some radio. Freedom, but in order to understand why. He did it. Why did you close it? Answer, I won't like this answer very much. It's hard to accept this answer. I don't believe it. Well, because it can't be. The answer is very simple. Trump is a fool. Thank you for the wonderful, amazing answer, dear Sergey. Let's get back to the case. Negotiation. Processes as you think what can be. It would be very naive of me. Ask about it, but what could be? dates of the end of the beginning of this truce, because now a lot of people are writing about that April is the 20th of May there. The first number someone writes about that. In 2 days, someone immediately after the phone signs someone something else. How things might actually be. In this particular sense, truce in general, there will be a call to the Kremlin should be like this. Same as in Hitler's bunker Adolfik. Shoot yourself, here another call. We have already agreed on this with Ukraine. Vladimir Vladimirovich, well, you have. Probably some conditions. Yes, listen. Write it down like this, and then in threes. Minnows, if you remember, such a tavern. Buratina means fried fish for a snack. A bottle of fresh milk still fried. A chicken and 3 crusts of bread for. Our friend Buratin, that is, the most extensive menu of the scoundrel seriously. Allowed to discuss the villainy of his conditions, and then he comes to him. Special Representative Witkov, what is he doing? Putin with a finally living American, who after 3 years of oblivion came to. His country came to his backwater. Representative of the most important on the planet. The whole land of the country adores Russia. Americans in front of an American. They definitely fawn over the American. Our eyes bulge. Momspo American passport, as if. Takes tips, we remember the reaction. She's exactly the same as a police officer. Absolutely everyone, and Putin especially. Here comes an American, the most man. The main one on earth in Russia is you second. There is no such thing. What does Putin do with him? He hits the threshold and says, so, come on, let's go for a quick walk for 8 hours. No time, American representative arrives. In order to discuss. Preconditions, you scoundrels. Listen ready, what are you doing, you spit? In America's face, because you say, I'm not saying anything at all right now. Let him go for a walk. Moscow is big. Here in Gorky Park, if anything, ride on the carousel, eat ice cream. We remember that American ice cream is the best Soviet ice cream you will find. To do something for the sake of the service. He'll go, and this spit speaks about it. That even here Putin has beaten America, and Putin is now treated like a monkey. You need to go in with the grenade very carefully. From the right, come from the left. What if there's a monkey? He'll get angry, and suddenly she'll figure out how. Let's pull the ring out of the grenade. We will be gentle with her, and Putin will do the same. We use therefore no quick. Putin will not have any decisions in principle. There are quick decisions Putin. Slow-witted Putin. He has a career as a KGB captain. I barely made it half my life to lieutenant colonel. He lived very slowly. He didn't have. There is a quick reaction to events, which require a lightning-fast response. Doesn't know what to say about Kursk. Drowned probably in about the current one. Kursk is probably also unclear about this. Nerdasta was generally silent as a fish clothed, and there are events happening now that, all over the world, they're being discussed and demanded, well, including comments. Well, there's nothing to say, but it's very important to delay any process, and the Americans. The Americans are the ones who are setting themselves up. Flow to this, and Yukov wiped himself and all. America, in his face, this spit is very carefully blotted intelligently, and she said, well, why are you spitting? We're done. Can we take off our coats here? And if anything, we'll sit down on the couch. Here are a couple of questions. Will sound, yes, now get out of here. An American went and sat down and flew away. And now, when we were waiting for the deadlines, but Trump, I finally got to the phone. And in these moments, he already says, hello yourself. Putin, that is Hitler, can calmly, completely say, listen, I'm busy, I'll go have smoke now. And since Putin has nothing but war, Putin has no prospect for action, no offers country. Hostage country instrument, all Russia, in order to spend it on this war, to reach the last man to reach, to the last meter, and here you don't have it. But they shake hands and say, come on, give back what you stole. Everyone says, well, okay, what stole? So they forgot who. Stabbed to death. So be it buried, come on. We will listen to you. You are a politician. You are for. World, you are good. And listen to Putin. It's possible forever, and Putin will be a Kazakh. To wait until the last minute, even after. It would seem that it is no longer possible, and it is unreasonable. Putin will definitely be. Keep the process on the longest pause, and the negotiations will not start now, and these negotiations will be the same. Painful and long following the results of the First World War, combined forest, and that same thing. Peace agreement, how long did it take to write? It took a year to write it. But what's stopping Putin from doing it? What difference does it make it's World War III? Well, it can wait. We haven't finished the first one yet. The second one is about to be played out, so we can do it ourselves. Let's talk about it for a year. Under what conditions? Well, maybe we. Let's stop killing, for example, despite the fact that America remains the main one all this time. Help accomplice of fascism because America has not moved its businesses out of Russia. Everyone looked towards Pepsi and they said, Pepsi call is 73rd. Years ago, Leonid Ilyevich Brezhnev personally. That is, on the one hand, he came, owner of the Pepsi company, and on the other, sides general, secretary, and not just prime minister or something. Minister of Industry, secretary general personally. Approved construction in Novorossiysk. Soft drink factories. Drinks, this was the sovereign level. Now it's closed and everyone said, look, American business is gone. American business supplies, absolutely. All electronics for Ukrainian missiles. They are killing with American electronics. Automotive industry. Putin's is just right for the American ones. Components, this is America, all 3 years of its. Factories producing what fights in. Ukraine is not closed in Russia. American factories are Americans. Came to Russia and built these factories. Factories produce these products. Kills Ukrainians, there's sanctions against. Some oligarchs, but American. America itself does not close business. A recent scandal when one oil. The company received a demand from White House to leave Russia. She said, no said, oh well, stay in. Russia Trade says, okay, business. Nothing like that. Henry Ford was. Henry Ford was an accomplice of fascism. The main sponsor of the NSDAP was Adolf Hitler. By chance, I kept his portrait in mind. In the office, he appreciated him for his anti-Semitism. He was valued for his support of fascism and Henry. Ford helped Henry Ford throughout the war. Hitler and the American people helped the war. The military mission wrote from North African Theater of War, actions fighting with Rommel's Corsi. I wrote to my office in my homeland. President, dear Sir Roosevelt, the fact is that here we fight with Henry Ford's armored cars, which he is now is not old. Non-war supplies at the moment. Wehrmacht. Could you do something about this? Do not. Well, it's a private business. Well, how? It's inconvenient. That's why America declared war. Germany and Henry Ford are not there. Today, the situation is exactly the same. America did not declare war on Putin. America is ready to negotiate with him. His conditions about anything because every day of this delay is wonderful. Stable supplies business is not accidental. In Europe, which said it had left. She didn't leave last year in Russia. Citroën plant resumes operations due to sanctions. France, she versus France, Macron, he. He is ready to help Ukraine now and the plant. Citroën is not ready. The Citroën plant was producing their trucks for Hitler and Hitler in. Entered Russia in trucks. Citroën and now the Citroën plant in Kaluga. Produces cars and then made money. High-end plant Korean and then the plant started working. Mercedes-Benz last fall and on. Last week in the village of Esipovo. Plant opens in Moscow region. Mercedes-Benz, and it produces Mercedes. Well, because many people were involved in this war. When you get rich, you need to buy something for yourself. A decent Mercedes, please. And if. Look at the Russian press yesterday came out. Interview with the head of one of divisions of Mercedes-Benz in Russia, which tells about extremely profitable work in the past year and about plans for this year in 20. Mercedes in Russia in the 5th year. Excellent production prospects. And commercial ones in America are even more so. Wonderful, and Putin, to whom absolutely. He doesn't need any peaceful life. He doesn't need these people. Russia doesn't. Russia is needed. That's all. The stand under it will break further. We will figure out what to do, what new. Buy a stand for yourself, and therefore, any process will be endlessly long. Because for now, this is all dragging on. The war drags on America, gets richer. Putin becomes a Russian contractor. Certainly not poorer, especially since even on. He fights with his own stolen money, maybe several decades in a row, and because he now runs America, then any negotiations are enough for him. Start and never finish. How are you? Do you think Kursk and Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, which Trump already mentioned? I mentioned it a few times, by the way. Part of this so-called peaceful transactions. Among fools, yes, because if a moron has to be a referee in the ring, for example, he is not for that team and not for this one. There really is some kind of judge, and here it is. Two boxers, one in red panties, another in white panties, and evaluate the number of black eyes for that. To award someone a victory is very strange criterion because there are more specific in sports are more visual. The results determine that this one won. This one is not, or for example, a draw, and here we are. They suggest a new configuration, let's. So we will talk about the war and its results. Speak based on the fact that this is it. They have a fence, and this factory is here. This needs to be changed. No means war. It stops not because you have two. There are more boards in the fence, and you took the store. Payeer, or the Payeer store was handed over. The war does not depend on this. Not on this. The world depends on the world it is not tied to. Specific geopolitical, strategic, and territorial. Acquisition of events, actions, or losses from the fact that you have this. The outskirts are occupied by the enemy, but that outskirts, on the contrary, return to the bosom. The statehood situation does not change. No way, but when you want to be very primitive, when you want to be completely, invariably petty, and in no case, pretend you don't understand anything. Then you need to count. Listen, let's do it like this. Every meter for every meter. Each person for each person and in. In the end, why did it turn out that way? For example, the Soviet Union in the second. The world has lost that question. How much? Well, Americans recently said 58 million. Germany, well, how much is there in total? What 15? And let's do it like this while you, for example, you don't know yourself either. If you do it wrong, the issue will be resolved. Try to determine what the weakness is or the strength of the position of, for example, Ukraine is that she has the Kursk region or in that she doesn't have Kursk region no well. Listen, well, you don't have Kursk region well. What kind of world can there be after this? Since you don't have Kursk region since you, there is nothing to exchange on the black market since you are on. The complete works of Jack London, not ready to give a gold Bridget in such a way. In your case, there is simply nothing to talk about. No talk about peace and ending the war. It should not be based on who has whom. How much did you cut off? And based on that, legality, statehood, and justice is determined, among other things. There are also geographical boundaries. Geographical boundaries must be respected, regardless of who does what. Took in the world is not built from this, but from us. They say, no, without such an add-on. Ukraine's position is weaker on these. In negotiations, she is weaker in only one thing. If Trump is a fool, I have many friends fighting in Kursk. I carefully follow this direction every morning. I read the reports of the general staff and in features that concern in part Kursk operation, and I look at interactive map to many Ukrainians. I really don't like it. It's unpleasant to watch. Watch because it's clear that sometimes it happens that Russians, they're moving forward. It is all displayed well how. There really is, and that's why. It's unpleasant to watch this, but there it is. Actually, this is the source I trust. This source, and moreover, I emphasize. Once again, I have many friends fighting there. None of them told me about that. Someone is in Kursk region, surrounded, but there are two people in this. The world who believe and publicly say so. This is what Vladimir Putin and Donald say. Trump, they are almost at the same time. They say that the Ukrainian armed forces are surrounded in. Moreover, Trump went to Kursk region. He then went on to say that thanks to me for my efforts and great contacts with Vladimir Putin managed to save lives. I have a question for the Ukrainian military. Why? Okay, Putin, it's clear why Trump. This does it for the umpteenth time during this broadcast. It turns out that Trump is a fool no longer. This is not the first time that Kursk has been surrounded, areas that are adjacent to the borders. Ukraine is possible only if you just went and came from the east and cut off Ukraine. From Kursk region with the Red Army. I couldn't do it when Trump and Putin, two people on planet Earth, declare that Zelensky's legitimacy is 4% more. No one has seen or heard heard of this number anywhere. And not to mention confirming, even being surprised. Regarding her, Trump can't seriously say anything. It doesn't hurt to insist on it at all, now that Trump has defeated evil here, saved the lives of Ukrainian guys, and is ready. Led them out like Ivan Suzanin from Encirclement. Well, that's because firstly, he doesn't know. Whereas Kursk region, secondly, he is not. Knows very well what's going on there thirdly. He confuses Iran with Iraq and Austria with Australia. Final question on this topic and further. I would like to have another one with you. War to discuss which peacemaker. For some reason it starts, but overall it's okay. Bloomberg reports that Putin called termination of arms supplies to Ukraine a precondition for signing ceasefire agreements. Music. And what will this be? What does it mean? Ukraine will stop receiving supplies, weapons, and we will have to obediently observe how, within the framework of the truce, if or when it happens, and it will happen, will Russia be comfortable at all? Arm yourself and use the time to. This or how? Germany has no right to after the war. The army into arms at defense factories, to aviation to tanks, and in between. Between, for example, the First and Second World Wars. Germany got the same thing with the war. Thanks to Stalin, because when? It was impossible to have military personnel there then. There are infantry, planes, pilots. Stalin prepared the touch. Well, Guderian, for example, graduated from the Kazan tank school well, because it was banned in Germany. Here is the same exact configuration from history textbook, apparently thanks to Medinsky finally jumped out as Putin's operational reporter. He said, yeah, let's reproduce. These conditions are exactly that. The Campion Agreement ends. First World War means so to Ukraine. No. They gave it according to the list. Let's see what's there. Was forbidden to everyone. To the rest, and this speaks once again about how seriously the role is growing. Europe in geopolitical processes and in support for Ukraine because Trump can. Macron does not agree on anything. Accidentally already pulled Putin up, he said no. It's up to Putin to decide what Macron and I should do. How can I support Ukraine and exactly like that? It's not up to Putin or Trump to decide what will be and on what conditions with the termination. Arms supplies if Europe will finally wake up and become his 800 billion invented but not yet, receive into their own hands by those who do not, less to implement in favor of Ukraine, because American supplies are. Not everything on planet Earth is great. American weapons, thanks even tanks. Abrams Atacamians are great. Heimers are great. Europe has the same thing, and in this, there is nothing to worry about in this regard because Trump is not a guarantor. Agreements, just like Putin didn't, is going to comply with them after. Stalin reached an agreement with Hitler and signed, including the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Non-aggression division of the world, Hitler, Jevnyakin, wrote down that now he will definitely attack on Stalin because he is great, understands who this is, and so does Stalin, who didn't keep a diary, however, indicated that, well, what should be done? It seems, prepare to attack Germany because what the Soviet Union was planning anyway. Attack her after, liberated by the battle with Great Britain, and America will already weaken it. Maximum, and when is there such a thing now? Threat that for the sake of ensuring peace, Ukrainians must remain unarmed, at least without American weapons. We are looking at Europe, well, it's time. There are already three of you so smart, and the Frenchman. The German and the Englishman are smart guys, perfectly understanding another thing that already quarreled at the start who will get 800 billion, because the Germans said, let's. We will place it in Korea and China, and Macron said, I could do everything. I can do it. I can make nuclear weapons in space. Fly, build aircraft carriers unlike you. Everyone, because no one else in Europe. I don't build aircraft carriers. I have nuclear weapons. So let's have everything. There will be defense orders at least. French, if you want Germans' rain metal. Please. We will share with you too. Says no, all the money in one. We should also include the basket on kickbacks. We need to make money there somehow. Chinese partners to talk a word. Bribe was invented by the Chinese, is 5,000 years old. This is China's national treasure to us. There's a way to trade with China well. Europe certainly can't agree. Never in a state, but some processes. The same Trump kicked it off and accelerated and when added to this unfair division of the world suddenly. It turns out that the weapon is also playing serious role we won't give you. Ukrainians try to fight without him. Europe is your way out. Before I contact you with the next question, I want to clarify I am absolutely for the position for the viewers, so that the terrorists are in tatters. Yemeni Houthi proxies of Iran destroyed. Absolutely, and it's clear why it seems to me. It's not even worth explaining, but how. These balance are correlated, which are carried out by the United States. America, under Trump's leadership with Trump's image. Peacemaker with Trump's words. Peacemaker with the words that I am a warrior. I don't start there. I finish the warriors and so on and so forth. Or is it part of a bigger game, let's say? Yes, in the Middle East, which concerns. Confrontation with Iran as on this. It's right to look first at Trump. Daughter is married to Israeli, and then there is a division. Peace for one's own and for someone else's, and in this too. There are several geopolitical enemies are Turkey, which wants to return. In itself, the Ottoman Empire, and is the same. The very Iran, which as soon as it receives the nuclear bomb will be the first thing to be destroyed. Israel, and then will hit America, because that Iran has 72 virgins for each. It's written in fate, and there's nothing to worry about. This is not possible to afford it. Moreover, Iran is the American embassy. Already once took America by storm so far. Shudders at the memory of that. How she then tried to at least return part of its personnel from captivity. Bargaining, buying out, and withdrawing from. Special operations set them free very. It was an unsightly story, although Iran in. At that moment, I was choosing which embassy. Take by storm. Soviet or American, well, by majority vote. Finally, the Democrats decided what to cut. We still have time for the Americans and Russians. Russians are next, Russians are not yet. Paid for 46th year for the annexation of Iran, which is just in case. Nobody knows about the case in the Soviet Union. There is nothing about this in school textbooks. The Iranians didn't forgive this either, and for America, this region is absolutely unfriendly, but the only one who here is a real partner, the real bearer of democracy. The only support is Israel, therefore. I don't even have to choose, so I'm in favor. Israel. And then everything is very simple because that the previous AVMIC agreements during the Trump administration it was. Fantastic success of that diplomacy. The oldest pre-reform previous. America first of all transferred. Embassy in Israel's whole life was Jerusalem, and he was never Tel Aviv. Secondly, Abrahamic agreements, they lifted the curtain and eliminated antagonism and rejection of such large players in the region, such as the Emirates, who calmly let them in. Israeli tourists, and it turned out that wonderful people, both of them, and in general, the Emirates show that Islam and Islamism, these are two fundamentally incomparable, but very similar phenomena and wonderful. Absolutely magnificent Islam, generous, kind, cultured, and very creative. He has nothing against it, and please, even if you are Israeli, that's fine. And even being an American is still the same. Come, we'll consider you a person, and Abrahamic agreements are very serious. Helped Israel find real allies because now, in the current war, while the same Jordan together with their princess and fighter, they shot down missiles coming into and out of the country. Iran and coming from Yemen, because the Houthis, they're also completely crazy. Self-made in America did not review. She knows her position exactly, who is here. Friend who is frag here and who needs it. Immediately give change, especially since. For example, today they were shelled. Another American aircraft carrier in this region and therefore also flew in across Syria. Will continue to fly in, and that's it. The old Trump is the old America. Agreements that fortunately no one doesn't think it's necessary to read it one more time and say, listen, how long are we on? Voice of America, we earn, and how much we earn on Yibd and on Syria we. How much did we earn, just like we did in Syria? We spend money, and we only spend money on Iran, no. Well, we need to make money in Iran. What do they have? There is nothing there. They can't earn money there. It won't work, but the only thing is Iran. American dollars, and they are counterfeit, are rated very highly because difficult to distinguish from the original, well, economics. Each one has one built in his own way, and we see that Trump has pushed back. For myself, this problem, or my daughter does not allow, and says, Dad, don't bother me. I'm here. I live, he says. Yes, yes, daughter. No problem. And then he did what? Trump in a China shop, unfortunately. The current, terrible, unpredictable, narcissistic, and stupid Israel is lucky. Trump hasn't changed his mind about Israel. It's still in its original place with the bookmark. It's just that I don't know there are 9 to 10 hours. Back, Israel struck again. Massive strikes on the Gaza Strip week. They also remembered that the U.S. is bombing. Yemen's Houthis and I all this time. I'm watching Moscow's reaction, and you know, I don't see any reaction for Biden eye. Let me remind you that I also carried out strikes against the Houthis. Let me remind you that under the Biden administration, there was also a war in the Middle East when Israel bombed the Gaza Strip, and then every second we heard from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Zakharova from local propagandists, Russian and other authorized representatives there, faces words of condemnation, and so what bad? The states of Israel and so on are silent. Today they are silent, dear Sergey. Can you? I'd like to ask you about what I suspect. Maybe I'm already moving into fantasy. Some kind of something, well, it's not just like that. That is, could it be that all this? The history of the Middle East is connected with the fact that, including the deal on Ukraine and what I have in mind, look, dear Donald, here we are. We can share all this with you. Do this and do whatever you want, I will. Keep your mouth shut. That's your business. Your place is there, your sphere of influence is there, and so on, but please don't touch mine here. This is my Ukraine, and so on in the Soviet era. Space, this is mine here, come on. Let's agree on this. Do you think there is? Well, if there is no agreement, then Pier 1. Wagner PMC battalion killed in Syria, directly from the clash with the Americans. They warned and said their word. Therefore, the entire battalion was held back together. Tanks and support died without even realizing. Where did death come from in Russia in this? In relation to this, the memory is long and evil. I would like to take revenge, but it doesn't work, especially since this region has always been the original sphere of influence, not only when, together with Great Britain was, the territory called was annexed, Iran, and turned into not even, the state, and simply to the assembly plant. Studebakers for the period up to 46. The Red Army was then driven out from there for years. Special efforts of the international diplomacy because the Soviet Union. I wasn't going to leave later, it wasn't by chance. For example, the same one worked in this region. The KGB department that created Islamism and Islamic terrorism was a serious work. It's now bearing fruit. Then it didn't work very well. Your Arafat was not very effective, though, of course. Palestinian terrorists in the military. In the camps of the Soviet Union, they prepared furiously, but the other thing is that they had efficiency. Not high despite Israel, there were attempts. Freeze your own ears now. Finally managed to freeze my ears because that these terrorists are also in Russia. They started running there to blow up Crocus, to dawn someone in this region. Painfully important for Putin and for Russia, especially since Putin has an understanding of victory. This is when he grabs someone else's land. Syria didn't succeed, although Khmelnytsky did. Now, and while I would like a couple of military bases, save and it doesn't work and it goes down. There's a trade and a military base on this matter. Remained, and in some century, by the way, was useful because it was a military base. The naval base it now houses Lavites who would otherwise have been cut out. Because it's going strangely now why. The Islamic world is silent and why Zakharova again keeps quiet when the Syrians. Those who put on the Syrians are cutting them. Ties cut those who do not suit them. I like them because they're basically the same. They worship the gods, but not so fervently. And with the wrong hand on the wrong foot and the rug is at. They are in the wrong direction, so they need to be. Just take it right on the street and stab it, and that too. Muslims are killing Muslims, but with genocide. It is not, and everyone keeps quiet, but some of them managed to run there, by the way. There used to be an Alawite state there for several decades in a row. Independent state of Alawites here. Now all that is left there is in Syria. It tried to escape undercover. Russian guns and Kalashnikov assault rifles. And in this regard, peacekeeping. The function knocked out of nowhere into the gate and was filled with good fellows because that saving people is especially for the strong. For the army, it's normal without. Regarding the fact that this is the same one. Fascist army, which in reality, we see how it is being dishonored in others regions and in Syria she used to behave like that. Just like the Shuz-Shaft battalion. The same Punishers who are all over. The world has absolutely identical Punishers for. This is very important for Russia. Territory is always a sphere of interests, and that now Russia is demonstratively turned away is certainly part of deals precisely because for Putin, Ukraine is not a subject of conversation. Garnier, the subject of conversation is division. The world has megalomania in both of them. And that's why how planet Earth is now being divided in Yalta, where who has the right to kill who has the right to give who after whom, is also looking at this region. Well, because, what is it? Trump's daughter, after all, that's not it. Somyshenka Zakharova. We have to pay America for this. Asking for not only Ukraine because that Ukraine is just a part, a very small puzzle on a huge field, which Putin